Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz, Shauketaly.
And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And this morning we are going to be discussing the investment climate and opportunities in Sri Lanka, and who better to do that than President's Counsel, Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, also the former chief at the BOI. Very good morning to you, Mr. Jayasuriya.
Good morning, Faraz.
And what is the investment climate like?
As at the moment, the investment climate, I think the change of this climate began in 2015 with the election of the new president. And also there are certain areas where the rule of law situation, the judiciary, the independent judiciary, a lot of good things have happened. But that's not all. As the president himself described it at that time, that was the beginning of a long journey. And transparency issues and the activation of the Bribery and Corruption Commission, all that has happened. But yet some more to happen, without which we can't move forward.
So without which, does that mean we are stuck in an abyss of despair?
Well, I'll start by saying yes. As you know, the BOI law, which was then referred to as the Greater Colombo Economic Commission Law, Act number 4, 1978, became law on the 7th of March 1978. That was nearly 6 months after the election of the new government at that time. By that time, within 6 months, they brought the draft law, approved in the cabinet, debated in the parliament, and became law in 6 months.
This is the GCC law.
This is the GCC, in which I too was part and parcel of it at that time. And now we have moved 40 years since then. So during this period, from time to time, the Act has been amended for good reasons. One of the major amendments that was brought in was during President Premadas's time, that originally the BOI companies under Section 17 could have been launched only, or agreements could have been signed only within the zones. But President Premadasa saw that there is a dearth of labour within the zones, so that we had to take it into the villages. So he made it possible that a Section 17 company can be set up anywhere in the country. With that, 200 garment factories came in.
Right.
And at a certain point of time, we lost the GSP Plus. Now we have got that GSP Plus back. So we need a project like that to come up again. Maybe 200 or 300 garment factories. And they should be given some kind of fillip for them to start off. At that time, they were given 1 or 2 duty-free vehicles. And that was a huge attraction for them, rather than giving these vehicles to the members of parliament only, or
almost
exclusively. So that kind of new thinking has to come in, particularly if we are to make use of the GSP Plus, which may not be with us for too long because of other situations in the country, per capita income and so on. We may go into the high income earning categories of, as far as the nation is concerned. So we will lose that again. So during this time that we have it, we must make use of it. So my claim, what I said earlier, was that after 40 years, obviously any law has to be audited again to see where have we done well, have we not done well, if not why we have not done well, and how to correct it. So that has to be done. But where we went wrong was, we started bringing a new law called the Agency for Development. That has had more than now nearly 3 years, that is yet to see the
Is that legally constituted now?
No, that is not law. That is not law. And that law sought to take away all the powers of the BOI.
Yes, okay. When you say that, I'm struck with this other matter.
So there was a wrong message that sent down the investing community also.
And also we read and heard through the media that the President Sirisena didn't want, or he wanted to disband the CCEM. Then we have reports of a few days ago that the Prime Minister went ahead and continued with the meeting of the CCM, this sort of inner cabinet within the cabinet sort of committee. And now you're telling me about this, where even though it's not legally constituted, the Agency for Development is carrying on. It appears to me that whilst this government is supposed to be a coalition government, a unity government, there is no unity when one partner, component partner, goes off and does what he wants, ignoring the other side. What do you say about that?
As you know, I would like to keep away from these political issues.
Yes, but
having said that,
you see my frustration.
Having said that, if the CCM is abolished, I think there should be another mechanism to be brought in to substitute that.
Procurement, something or other.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the decisions I know have to be taken at the highest level. But having said that, I must also say, at the time when the CCM was there, I believe it is there or not there, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of the decisions of the CCM were also not carried out by the officials.
Well, that's the other point. I was coming to that. You know, it's all well and good blasting and lambasting the politicians, but these politicians are not on their own because they need officials to carry out various things, and these officials are supposed to be acting in the national interest. And quite frankly, Mr. Jayasuriya, some of these people, some of these officials have not been acting in the national interest. And the case in point has got to be Dr. Bhattagoda, who's coming for some severe criticism in a Supreme Court order, the one about the call. To me, just on that alone, whoever is in charge of this person ought to have sidelined him and sent him on retirement, or sent him somewhere that he didn't mess about with such key components. How do these public officials get away with it?
It's a very sad situation as far as the aspect that you just brought up.
Yeah.
Now, I have been advocating this from time to time. I'm talking about Bhattagoda himself.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you could recall, I have been talking about this even at the time when I was the BOI chairman, that there were people, investors, more than 5 investors that were waiting in the queue to invest in LNG,
about 5,
liquid natural gas.
Yeah.
And their total investment was $3.5 billion.
Yeah.
And they were going to bring the money and then invest in that. Right? Some were going to have do it from the sea, or to set up their terminal within the country, or all that.
Also different proposals.
Different proposals. Right? But now everyone was laughing at it. Why? What is this BOI chairman talking about? Is he the power authority to decide which kind of power was required by this government?
Yeah.
I kept on saying it is not the source of power, it's the cost of power. Yeah. Finally, it's the people, the consumer, that has to pay for it, whatever the price that you may buy it at. So, and the cost of the LNG, they were prepared to give it, if I remember, recollect it right, at some 8 US cents per unit. Whereas the average cost per purchased power was about 18 to 20 rupees, average cost. But in some instances, we were also taking up buying power at 50 rupees or 25, 30 rupees. So if we got this amount of power substituted by a cheaper source, so first that goes out would be the power that is generated at a higher cost. So the average will go down drastically, average cost. That has been now totally overlooked by up to this moment. But now they are starting to talk again to bring the LNG, and that is by way of procurement. That means,
which is where we have to pay.
The government or a government institution has to pay for it. And who is going to pay for it?
Has to make the capital investment.
They make the capital investment. So all these billions of dollars that the investors were willing to invest in Sri Lanka to make a buck, possibly, is now to be made by the government at a cost.
So have you all done the sums and figured out which is better? Is it better for us to use our capital and spend our capital to fund it that way, and then be fully in control of the end price, the per unit cost? Or is it better to let the investors come in make their own investment and negotiate with us on a payment per unit, which makes more sense.
You know, it has always been proved that government investments, the government should not involve in investments.
Right.
Government should not involve in industries.
Right.
It should be open to the private sector. When we make our own investment, the amount of money that we have to invest, where are we going to get it from? If we are having oil in our country, or if we are having some cheaper source of funding, that's a different matter. All this money we have to borrow. By 2020, the amount of money that we have to pay back to the lending community is more than trillions. Trillions. I don't know how we are going to do that. So are we going to adapt to that amount of money that we have already borrowed at such a huge cost, and for which we have no idea as to how we are going to pay back?
How does one secure or control the security, the energy security, and the prices and so on, when you get the option that you've been suggesting, which is funding by the contractor?
Tighten the agreement. Tighten the agreement and monitor it. Tightening the agreement is useless unless you monitor it. You have to monitor it from the word go, that they stick to what they say in the agreement. So negotiate it correctly, so that they put their money. They run the risk of making a loss, if at all. If the LNG prices go up in the world, they run the risk.
Right.
India went into LNG more than 10 years ago in a big way. At that time there was a hype in India. And they are well onto it at this moment. But we are the ones, we are still lagging, and we are still scratching our head and thinking whether it should be LNG or any other source of power.
And obviously one lobby is far more intense than the other.
Yes, and also there are the private sector people, they keep push and pull and all that they believe in. At the end of the day, the people have to pay the price, which is what we are doing even in the other normal electricity that we consume today. The average cost has gone up so much. We have to pay for it. That makes the investments climate even less and dismal.
So, when you were at the BOI, and did you have a steady stream of foreign investors or would-be, wanna-be foreign investors calling at your agency?
Now, the BOI is supposed to be a one-stop shop. Right? We have to make things possible for people to come and invest here. Is there no point our going around the world and then asking people to come and invest here, because there are large number of investors who are willing to come and invest in Sri Lanka. So we must see what are the obstacles that are there at the moment, preventing them from investing in Sri Lanka. We must first put our house into order. Once that is done, we can go out and then invest. But at the moment, there are huge amount of problems with the liner agencies.
Right.
Power and Energy Ministry and those institutions are one sector. There are so many other sectors: availability of land, availability of electricity, availability of water, the storage systems. Everywhere, there are some industries cannot be set up everywhere. There should be storage disposal system. So unless we look into those areas and then find the solutions, we can't not only attract the investors but also maintain the investors who are coming to our own doorstep and then knocking on our door.
So nevertheless, you had a steady stream of people coming there.
We had a steady stream of
I think what I'm trying to ask you is, isn't it better to try and serve those people first?
Of course.
And get them going and actually work, not just give them an approval, but monitor it, like you said before. Monitor it, ensure that what they promise is what they deliver, and then you can see the funds coming in, and then you can take your investment promotion division and scour the world for more opportunities. Is that the way forward?
That's
is that what we should
That's the way that we should be doing.
But we are having this conversation because that's not being done then.
But as I began this discussion, the problems are not only with the politicians. Politicians can make policy.
The officials too.
The officials too. And with this unity government, with this so-called transparency that have been now opened up, the officials take the upper hand, and high-handedly they take decisions for themselves, apparently for the benefit of the institutions, but not so.
They're doing it with a
for their own collateral purpose and for their own benefit. As a result of which the people, there are some agreements that have been signed. They are going round and round the bush. They are not being able to implement them. Why? The officials are standing in the way. Officials are now there should be laws to change. That kind of officials should be punished. That can come under even corruption. But there must be at least even in the BOI law, finding people, faulting people for corruption and then punishing them is another area. But in the meantime, where do you leave the investor? There should be some kind of deemed approval. If you bring in the deemed approval and also fault them by law, if they delay such things, that they should be penalized.
That would then set the cat amongst the pigeons. Yes. And on that note, we go for a short break. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline. And welcome back to Newsline. We're in discussion with Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, President Counsel, and of course former Chief of the BOI. We're looking at the various why investment Sri Lanka isn't really kicking off yet. Now then, can it kick off really when foreign investors, they must be sitting out there and looking at the Bloomberg tickers and the CNNs of this world and so on, and thinking, oh my gosh, Sri Lanka, there's a bit more trouble there now. And then you have things like sort of inconsistency in policy. We had before the super gains tax. We had a mansion tax. We had all these sort of taxes which the rest of the capitalist world, if you like, have done away with. And here we're going back. Decisions made just on the perception of one man or a group of men, and maybe women, who knows, in the cabinet. That super gains tax, I keep batting on about this thing because it sounds very, very unfair, Upul, when you have listed companies who've been in business for years and years and years. And listed, I keep saying listed because there's so much of a compliance regime required of listed companies. And for them to get away with ill-gotten gains is a little bit much to believe. Because there are enough of laws to catch them out anyway. And yet they paid up. And then we have the government struggling. And where do we have the money from? From one disaster to another. Some natural, of course, like the landslides and so on. Salava, the housing of the people affected by the tsunami. Yes, after all those years, it's still not fulfilled. The former conflict areas, the IDP situation. Where is the money coming from? Is there enough money being generated from FDIs and all that?
Well, FDI monies are not there for spending by the government.
No, I know, but they generate
private. They generate that takes a long time. Yeah. And most of these investments that were brought in at that time were tax-free, tax holidays.
Yeah.
Were there.
But they create employment.
Not anymore. But that's the idea was for the people to be provided with employment and more activity. So there'll be other support industries that will be set up and so on. No country has developed by agriculture in the world.
No.
Every country, including China, has developed through trade and business and industry. So, which is where I think Sri Lanka was the second in the entire region. President Jayawardena's brainchild that was. Though he was blamed at that time when he started this as open economy. And we were the second in the entire region after Singapore.
Right.
China was after Sri Lanka, India was after Sri Lanka, so was Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia and all the other countries in the region. But where have we gone? Now if you look at the ease of doing business, there are about 10 criteria where a country is held back with regard to the investment climate. Now on these criteria that are there are about 4 criteria with regard to the administration of justice. I don't think we are doing enough to identify where the problems are and to put them right. Even the judiciary has to take some part of the blame. There are some cases that are filed by BOI companies. They take sometimes 5 years, 10 years to decide. There should be some time frame that should be brought in. Serving summons on a company, maybe a foreign company, is a nightmare. It takes 2 to 3 years just to serve the summons. Right? Enforcement of contract, we are 163rd out of 184 countries. Just imagine where we are heading. So if we can't have a contract entered into and then rely on it and to be able to enforce it, means nothing. These things mean nothing. So we are only looking at the macro picture all the time and then keep on blaming the politicians. Yes, they have to be blamed when they have to be blamed. But in the meantime, there should be some people looking at these areas. Various committees have been set up from time to time, but I don't know whether they are proceeding at the pace that they are expected to. Unfortunately, my experience is the answer is in the negative. They are just grappling in the dark and then nothing has moved forward. So this Yahapalanya is very good, but in the meantime, that has been abused and misused by some of the people. I say including the judiciary. If we don't put this thing right, now I can give you one other example of a company that has signed an agreement with the BOI and they have made an investment of 1 billion rupees. 1 billion. Japanese company. They were to plant Kotala himbutu in Sri Lanka and then get the extract and then do a powder and then export it to Japan for them to be able to make a tablet out of it. In the meantime, they are planted. In the meantime, they could buy whatever the legal felling of Kotala himbutu. Now, there was an incident where I think when all these expansions take place, development, so many trees have been cut. Amongst them were some Kotala himbutu trees, and they were producing court. Court put it on auction, and this company has bought it. They have bought some, I can't remember the number of tons, and they have processed and then created, after buying from the court auction, who put it under the supervision of the wildlife department. They bought it. They process it. It has ended up with some few hundred kilos of Kotala himbutu powder. Now they were prohibited from exporting to the expected destination. Why? The customs officials, the wildlife people, they sat on them. So why is the BOI sitting here? And they went to court, nothing happened. And this is a mockery. This is I would say, I'm sorry to use this word, this is a bloody joke. They buy it from a legal source and they process it. Will there be investors coming to our country?
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Will there be investors if they understand the plight that this company, the Japanese company, is facing? I'm just giving just a one small instance, example. But there are so many like that. This is a sad story. This is what we are failing to understand and put right.
And how far are we from fixing such problems?
I have been trying to organize a meeting with the BOI and the heads of the judiciary and the other agencies for people to understand this. That never materialized. Without which you can't move forward. I think the Attorney General's Department, the Judicial Service Commission, the BAR, the BOI, and maybe any other agencies. I think even the media should get involved in this. Because media is also just scraping into the very, very superficially. You don't go into it. If you go into it, you'll find that it's much more serious than we think it is. If you don't put it right, whichever the government, whichever the party that's in power or is going to come to power, this country has no future if you don't put these little things right.
Now then, in the past, of course, there was a breakdown of all sorts of rules and regulations and processes and procedures and so on. So when this government came in, they did face a sort of uphill task at fixing some of the essentials, like the judiciary and the independent commissions and so on. Now, what kind of a report card would you give them 3 years down the line?
Now, with regard to those aspects, I began commenting on that as well. There have been very positive response. There have been very positive actions that have been taken, including the Right to Information Act, which is superb. Which is superb, and that act has been made use of by lawyers in many instances.
Yes,
I have made
it's
use
not
of
the ideal, but
we are making progress in that. In India, it's working well. In Sri Lanka, we are still working well. There are one or two instances where they fail to give the information that is required to be given.
Yes,
they shy away, but they are brought back to the mainstream, and it's happening. So the appointing process of the judges, whatever we do, if there is no independence of the judiciary, and the judges are capable of understanding and comprehending the issue that is being faced with, and they come out with a speedy resolution and solution, again we have a problem facing. We are now, with the re-establishment of the Constitutional Council, with the re-establishment of the other independent commissions, I think we are well on our way with regard to those areas. Then the media freedom. We don't hear any more Lasantha Vikramatunga has been murdered on the highway in broad daylight. We don't hear of people, the journalists being abducted and then killed or even assaulted mercilessly or tortured and then dumped somewhere on the road and then moved away in white vans. So there again we have done very well. So we must talk of the good things also. You must talk of the not so good things and the bad things, and then move forward. We have to identify it and then move forward.
And if you were to be approached, now that you're not at the BOI, and in your your legal world, if you have a client who says to you, Mr. Jayasuriya, what do you think? Shall I come and invest some money in this country? What would you say to him?
The lawyer-client relationship is something different. Right? I will still invite people to come in my capacity, present and before, to come and invest in Sri Lanka. We have plus points that other countries in the region don't have. But we have now created minus points also. Now with whoever's proposal, we don't have any more tax holidays. Right? People are saying, have been saying, even the tax department people are saying, my God, what a lot of money we have lost. But they don't understand that these investments we wouldn't have got if not for the tax holidays. We are only hypothetically calculating and then adding up to see how much we have lost. But there wouldn't have been a question of losing, because such industries wouldn't have been there. So now in this region, all the other countries still offer tax holidays, but we don't. Now Exchange Control Act is now, there's a new act. So therefore the Exchange Control has also gone out of the BOI law. But one can argue to say that the exchange control has now very much liberalized, and therefore there should be no question. I would agree with that. So then with regard to the employability of the workforce, do we have the workforce? We are always boasting about our workforce, saying that we are intelligent and efficient. I would say intelligent but not efficient enough. But in the meantime, now we have a problem of finding employees. We have more than 1 million three-wheel drivers. All the capable people are taking, men or women, are taking a three-wheeler and then getting on the road. They find that's easy cash. Now they are facing a problem with the Uber and the other stuff that is coming in. So those are the needs with the changes that are taking place in the technology world. So there again a problem. So we are still now looking at President Premdas's amendment that has been brought in. So we can go into the rural areas, but still where is the infrastructure? But in the meantime, having said that, BOI has by now identified more than 7 to 8 zones, including Salawa. About 1,000 acres are there. Then Charlimont Estate in Matara, and then so many other areas. Large number of land banks have been identified. And in Mullatim, they have to be provided with other infrastructure. But we are too slow. That's the whole problem.
We need to switch on the turbocharger.
We have to switch on with the turbocharger and move forward. Because if you have to set up a zone, there are so many other liner agencies that are required to jump in and then the bandwagon and then move forward. Without which the BOI officials cannot do it alone. They are just left alone. That's a sad part of the story.
Upul Jayasuriya, thank you so much for coming in on Newsline. Actually, well, there's one question we just didn't have enough time, and that was to say, why is there so little significant foreign investment in the northern province? That may be a question that we can discuss on one of our other programs. But thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time and your commitment. Thank you. And that's the way it was on Newsline. Hopefully your social media and all that will be working soon. That seems to be the byword these days. And have you wondered how on earth you've done without it for so many days? Don't you feel sorry for yourselves? There you go. So that's the way it was on Newsline today, the Wednesday, the 14th of March 2018. Take care and God bless.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.